It's been a busy day for the Philadelphia Eagles, as for the second time today here on Eagles Now, we have some breaking news. Prior to NFL free agency starting on Monday, the Birds have re-signed Brandon Graham to a new one-year contract. Speaking of that other breaking news that we literally just covered a couple of minutes ago, it was the fact that Philadelphia has granted Darius Slay and his agent Drew Rosenhaus permission to seek a trade. Full breakdown and analysis on that, so make sure you check that video out. There's the thumbnail to my right. And this is why you subscribe to the show. Darius Slay given permission to seek a trade. We have a video out within the hour. Brandon Graham re-signed to a new one-year contract. And here you go. Free agency buzz, NFL draft prospect analysis, and when breaking news happens, that is our specialty. Let's circle back to Philadelphia Eagles legend Brandon Graham re-signing with the Birds on a new one-year contract. It was Tim McManus of ESPN breaking the news, and this is a pretty team-friendly deal. The deal is up to worth $6 million. Graham did decline to enter NFL free agency, and he did it out of loyalty to the organization that drafted him in the first round in 2010 out of Michigan, and he has gone on to have one of the best careers among all Eagle defenders ever in the history of this franchise. Brandon Graham is top 5 in franchise history in sacks, and he's coming off a 2022 in which he put forward arguably the best season of his career at 34 years old and coming off a torn Achilles. I thought he should have been comeback player of the year. It was a joke that it went to Geno Smith. What did he come back from? Sucking throughout his entire NFL career, whereas Graham, age 34 season, goes on to have 11 sacks, 35 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and he was able to put forward and produce those numbers with a limited snap load. His snaps were under 500 during the accumulation of the 2022 campaign, and for BG to do that, really, really impressive. And I thought it was important for the Eagles to bring him back. He is a cultural icon within that locker room. He's a legend among this fan base, a pillar of the organization going all the way back to 2010 when he was drafted. He had the Super Bowl strip sack of Tom Brady, which is arguably the biggest play in the history of this organization, and he takes a team-friendly deal to come back to Philadelphia, and he was going to have offers elsewhere. A team like the Cleveland Browns, rumored to have interest in him. There are a lot of teams who are starving for pass rush help across the NFL, and for the Eagles, we know they like to build their teams and really stack up talent along the defensive line and the offensive line. This goes right in line with how Howie Roseman likes to construct a roster. Here's what Brandon Graham had to say to Tim McManus. I definitely don't want to miss out on this championship that we're about to make a run for. I pretty much directed my agent, Joel Siegel, to just get a deal done before NFL free agency so I wouldn't have to go through that part. I'm just so happy everything came to fruition. It wasn't even about no money. It was more about wanting to be an Eagle as long as I could still play at a high level. And of course, I still have a sour taste in my mouth on how things ended this past year with the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Love what BG had to say right there, and it goes in line with what this guy is about. He epitomizes what a Philadelphia Eagle should be. Class, blue-collar worker, taking a team-friendly deal, has that swagger. He'll talk shit to the opposition during the coin toss. We love you, Brandon Graham. And to show your love to this Eagles legend, I want everybody to type BG down in the comment section right now. You take a look at how he fared in 2022. For him to come off arguably the most severe injury that you can suffer, a torn Achilles at his age, and to have 11 sacks, 48 pressures, 32 quarterback hurries, and 16 quarterback hits, really impressive. And I do still think that he has gas left in the tank. On yesterday's live show, we talked about that report from Ed Kratz that the Eagles were looking to maybe sign him to a 2-year deal worth about $6 million per. Well, this deal, a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. He wants to play in the NFL NFL for 15 years. That's what he said, and he's going into year 14 now. And last year, a part of an Eagles team that in the regular season had an NFL high 70 sacks. That was 15 more than any team, and they might lose Javon Hargrave here and his 11 sack production total. They might lose a Fletcher Cox. But the good thing is that this Eagles defensive line and their defense still going to get back Hassan Reddick, who combined in the regular season and in the playoffs for 19.5 sacks. Hopefully Brandon Graham can have something close to what he did this past year. Josh Sweat continues to get better year in and year out. So while you might have some changes on this defense and on this defensive line, especially in that secondary, if Darius Slay gets traded, James Bradbury leaves, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Marcus Epps, T.J. Edwards, Kaiser White, all those players free agents, you still have some members of that really good defensive line to return. And then you look and shift gears to the analytics for BG in 2022. Pro Football Focus. Sometimes they're a little bit too nerdy for me. Sometimes I don't think that their numbers tell the whole story. The tape more so does that. But a Pro Football Focus grade for BG of 89.8. That's like the 1%ers of all NFL players. Just like you're making $1 million, you're a 1%er per year in America, you're a 1%er here. If you have a Pro Football Focus grade of 89.8, a pass rush grade of 89.1, run defense grade, I think that's an underrated facet for BG, 71.9 with those quarterback pressures and those hurries against the opposing quarterback as well. And for BG, throughout his career, we're talking about a career now that is spanning what's about to be 14 years, drafted all the way back when Andy Reid was still the head coach in 2010. That's when I graduated high school, and shoot, that makes me feel old. 70 sacks in those 178 career games in the regular season to go alongside 140 quarterback hits. 116 tackles for loss, as he's consistently been very active in the backfield with 21 forced fumbles, the lone big one against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. And for Brandon Graham, I've always said this about sacks. He's never been a big sack producer, but with quarterback hits and quarterback pressures, he's always been in the upper echelon of the NFL. And I look at quarterback sacks sometimes, kind of like how we look at wins and losses for a pitcher. It's an interesting stat and sometimes a meaningful one, but it doesn't tell the full story. ERA tells the full story for a pitcher. You could be 7-20 that season as a pitcher, but if you have a sub-3 ERA, you're one of the best pitchers in the league. Sometimes sacks, they don't tell the full story because quarterback hits and quarterback pressures sometimes are a more valuable stat because you force the quarterback to get rid of the football. That could lead to an errant throw, a turnover, and the accumulation of that is really impactful. Sometimes it's really hard to actually take a quarterback down to tally that sack. But for Brandon Graham, he's consistently been one of the best edge rushers in the sport. Great that he is returning to this team for at least one more year. So before we hop on out of here, his jersey number is 55. You know all about that. If you're excited that he's returning, type his jersey number down in the comment section and be sure to give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior and keep it locked next week. You think today's cool? You think today's crazy with 2 shows already? Next week, it's going to be a whole different ball game and we're bringing the heat, so subscribe.